Hey everyone, this episode of Around the Horns is brought to you by Pint House. The newest addition to the Pint House family, Pint House Brewing offers a truly unique setting to host an unforgettable private event or party. Pint House Brewing, located at East Benoit Boulevard, is a 29,000 square foot building that features a tap room with a picturesque brew house backdrop, a nice, airy 5,000 square foot covered patio, and a private brewer's loft that intertwines with the brewery itself. The Brewer's Loft boasts its own bar and seating area that provides great views of the brewery and the tap room. Book your private event or party today using the link in the description.
All right, hello and welcome to Around the Horns, a show where we are talking about University of Texas baseball. I am Aaron. I am here, as always, with my co-host Zach. Today, we are going to recap the Oklahoma State series that saw Texas go to Stillwater and drop 2 out of 3 to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. We will hit briefly on the Air Force game that happened on Tuesday night before getting into our preview of Kansas State and talking about some other quick things going on around the country. Zach, how are we doing?
Doing good. Missed opportunity this past weekend, but had a really fun time at the Air Force game. So that was awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Air Force game was cool. It was quick, pretty nice and easy win there. Nothing really to stress about, but that was kind of needed after the weekend in Stillwater, where there was plenty to stress about. If you're a Texas fan, there's a lot of close games, which is something that probably could be expected going forward, just the way this Texas team is made up. If we go back to Friday, the main thing that stood out to me, Zach, Lucas Gordon, he was way more efficient with his pitch count. And we know this year, Gordon has been awesome pretty much every single time out. His ERA is fantastic. His record's great. He's been the Friday night guy, pretty much everything you can ask for. The one last thing that we've been kind of looking for, and you could probably ask for out of a Friday night guy, is to be more efficient, be able to push into the 7th, maybe the 8th inning. And he was able to go a complete 7 innings on Friday, efficient pitch count. And that really helped. Texas was able to save the bullpen a little bit there on Friday. And I just thought he did a good job of, attacking the zone, not being too picky and still getting outs while being able to attack the zone.
Yeah, I mean, 7 innings work, 7 hits and 3 runs on 99 pitches is nothing to sneeze at, right? His strikeout rate wasn't very high, but I wouldn't expect it to be against a pretty quality hitting team like Oklahoma State. So, yeah, I thought he did a really good job. He was really mixed, he really mixed it up well in terms of fly outs versus ground outs. He kept everything off balance. So he wasn't letting just everything get hit real hard, which was really good. Yeah, I mean, I agree. The biggest complaint you could have about Lucas is he hasn't gone deep in games necessarily because he can get high pitch counts. I think that addition of the slider this year has helped with that some, though, because he can throw something that looks just a little bit different, has a little different shape. And that helps because, guys are going to start, cluing in and really teeing off on pitches when they can expect something as they see him 2 or 3 times in a game.
Yeah. And I mean, just for Lucas Gordon, this is when you're really on the cusp and you've made it as a electric starting pitcher. When we are nitpicking about a guy with a 2.04 ERA as a Friday night starter in the Big 12, that's what happens when you get to that level. You're like, all right, what's next? Pitch count. Like, that's just how good he's been. So it's been really fun to see. The other thing to note from Friday was Dylan Campbell almost hit for the cycle. That would have been cool. The cycle is, I don't know, in my opinion, maybe just like a little bit overrated, just because, like, I don't know, wouldn't you rather just have like 3 homers in a single as opposed to a cycle? But DC did have a single, double, triple, and then he had a ball caught on the warning track that was almost a homer. He had a really big weekend overall. He's heating up. We'll talk about him a little bit. But yeah, it was good to get the win on Friday night for Texas. Saturday, different story. I mean, we talk about being efficient with the pitch count. Not necessary when you pitch for Oklahoma State, I guess, and they're willing to just run you out there for 128 pitches on a Saturday like they did for Jerron Watts-Brown, the starter for Oklahoma State, who we knew going into the game Saturday was going to be a tough matchup for Texas. When Watts-Brown is on his game, there aren't many pitchers in the country that are going to be better than him. And unfortunately for the Horns, he was on his game. And not only was he on his game, they were, Josh Holliday, they were just going to let him cook. I mean, they were out of his way. They said, 113 pitches. You feel good? All right, send him back out there. And to his credit, man, he was out there there was probably 4 different times when I was like, all right, man, he really mowed Texas down, but at least he's done. And then he would just come back out to the next mound. The next inning, I'd be like, okay. And then it just kept happening. I was like, wow. But I mean, he was sitting there 110 pitches, 113 pitches, just snapping off electric breaking balls, just like the bottom completely dropping out of him. That's just not what you're supposed to be able to do. 115 pitches, 125 pitches into an outing. But yeah, he went 8. He went 8 innings, 12 Ks. There were, nothing really Texas can do when you have a guy like that that's just on his A game.
It's funny too, because he's the Friday night guy, but 2 weekends ago, he got moved all the way back to Sunday because of a potential injury concern. They were a little worried about him. He moves back into the Saturday role, and apparently there's no concern at all because, 128 pitches. He faced 31 batters. He got into trouble a couple of times, but it was always I felt like it was always easy trouble. He didn't really have to strain to get out of it. But yeah, the dude was absolutely electric with his breaking balls. His fastball played really well off of those. He was able to use that inside out really well. Texas just really did not have an answer for them at all. It was a little crazy to see. And we knew he was good, but he hasn't really maybe lived up to his billing yet. And this was kind of the first game this season where it's like, oh yeah, that's why he's a potential first round draft pick in the 2023 draft. And then, Saturday, we also saw another familiar face in Isaac Stevens, who threw 26 pitches on Friday, bounces back and throws 15 pitches on Saturday. I'm like, well, okay, sure.
And then comes out Sunday.
And then came out Sunday as well. Yeah. So
yeah, no, I mean, they over there and still, I mean, you could kind of tell from the broadcast, which I don't know, we can talk about if you want to. I've got plenty of takes. But just the general sentiment on the broadcast was not one that was overly concerned about pitch count or arm fatigue. So if you put 2 and 2 together and kind of match the broadcast there with the coaching staff and maybe some potential connections there, it made a little bit of sense about the pitching philosophy. But yeah, I mean, Isaac Stebbins just kept rolling him out there. And I mean, I would be tempted to if I were their coach, because that guy was awesome. And they didn't have Nolan McLean, which was a big deal. He got hurt Friday night. He got hurt Friday night. Yeah. Banged into the wall. Looks like he banged up his knee there. Hopefully he's okay. One of the best players in the country. But yeah, and then Saturday, the pitching for Texas, it held up pretty well. I mean, it gave them a chance to win. Travis Taylor didn't have his best stuff. I think he held him to the 4 runs. I believe the bullpen did all right. They gave him a chance to win, but they were just never winning that game with the way Jerron Watts Brown was going there on the mound, which brings us to the rubber match on Sunday, where I'm sitting there going into the game and you're thinking, okay, yeah, it's a road game and Oklahoma State's a good team, but I'm thinking advantage Texas because we haven't seen LeBaron Johnson Jr. yet. We hadn't seen Charlie Hurley yet. Zane Morehouse didn't pitch on Saturday, so he was pretty fresh and ready to go. And then, we talked about, I thought Isaac Stevens was going to be unavailable. He was available. And then they didn't have Nolan McLean. So It seemed like advantage Texas from a pitching perspective. And it was a close game. It was a tight game the whole way. And oh man, the 9th inning was it was just an unmitigated disaster on both sides of the ball. Just an epic meltdown. 2022 was an epic meltdown. This was just kind of a gut punch as far as a game they should have, a big game that they should have and could have won. But I'll let you go through the details of that 9th inning because I don't want to.
Well, the thing is, like, the way the game started off, Texas got 3 runs in the first, and I'm like, all right, we knew that Texas would be able to hit this guy. They were playing Brian Hendry, the St. John's transfer. I was like, yeah, Texas could very well just blow them out of the water, as we've seen Oklahoma State get blown out of the water on Sundays.
Yeah.
After that, the dude just cruised for a while. Like, he went 4 innings, and then they rolled out Drew Blake, who also threw 28 pitches on Friday night. What does he do? He goes 4 innings, throws 53 pitches on Sunday. Like,
four perfect innings. Didn't allow base running.
4 perfect innings. He had he gave up 1 walk.
In the fourth.
Yeah,
inning.
and then he had 1 hit, right? But otherwise, he was absolutely solid. And you're like, what the hell is going on? And then, of course, Stevens. So in the 9th inning, they get bases loaded with no outs.
Yeah.
Jared Thomas comes up. I thought he had a pretty competitive at bat. I mean, he looked at a couple of pitches where I was like, all right. But ends up rolling over 1 out. Okay, fine.
I think
Then,
they punched him out, right? Yeah.
oh
I
no,
think
that
they
you're right.
punched
That
out
was a
Thomas.
strikeout. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, bases loaded, still one out. You have Mitch Daly. He rolls over one right to the shortstop. Not hard, not choppy, nothing. Just a nice rollover. Just doop doop. There you are. Turn two and have a fun day. And I'm like, wow. You're up 1 run in the bottom or the top of the 9th inning. You have bases loaded and you can't score one. That does not bode well for your chances.
No, just watching it, you just know. And like you said, it was one of those ground balls, like right when it was come off the bat, it was like, all right, that is a double play. There's no way around it unless there's a miraculous error. But not only was it just one of those like, oh man, that's a double play to end the inning. It was okay. I suddenly have a bad feeling about this 9th inning now because of what just happened. And unfortunately, those gut instincts that I'm sure plenty of Texas fans out there were feeling, it turned out to be true. Zane Morehouse, he just didn't have it. He got the first out, then there was a single, and we talked about it before. Sometimes when Morehouse gets in the stretch, it can take him a little bit to kind of find his rhythm and sink his arm with the rest of his body out of the stretch, and he can lose his command there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, when you're up by 1 in the bottom of the 9th, you don't really have the luxury of having a couple batters to figure it out and settle in. You've got to be money right off the bat. And he just didn't have his command. Couple walks, wild pitch ties the game. Base hit down the right field line, wins it. Just a devastating walk-off loss. That's just part of being a closer, though. Overall, Zane Morehouse, I mean, he hasn't been the closer for that long now, but I feel like he's gone through the full experience, if you know what I'm saying. Like, he's had electric saves. He's had an electric save on the road at A&M. I mean, He's gotten out of jams. He's locked down 1-run leads, 3-run leads. But unfortunately, the last kind of part of being a closer is, everyone blows a save. Mariano Rivera, he blows saves. I mean, every closer that has ever been a closer has blown a save if you do it long enough, which is just going to happen. So overall, you still have to be happy with what you've seen from Morehouse. But going forward, you just got to hope he has it. That's just kind of how it is with closers. Like, you hope they have it. And if they don't have it, you're in trouble. It's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. And, what we haven't talked about is David Shaw had left the game due to a potential injury. I mean, everything sounds fine as far as we know to this point, but, we don't have any official word yet. And, people were complaining, well, Ace Whitehead was used for one batter. Well, he ended up starting the Tuesday night game against Air Force. And so they weren't going to draw him out. And realistically, if you're looking around the best arms in the bullpen, I mean, Morehouse was the guy. And I guess you could make a case that Pierce maybe should have pulled him after the second batter, but that's one of those instances where you really got to just let the guy kind of double down and work.
I mean, when you have a closer, and it's safe to say Morehouse has established himself as the closer.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a closer that you like and there was nothing you don't like about Morehouse as a closer up to this point, usually you just let him win it or lose it. Like, you just don't get anyone else up. He's either going to win the game, he's going to lose the game. And then if it goes to extra innings, then you can think about getting someone up. But in that scenario, I mean, the jam that he got himself in, the only way you're getting out of it is to get some punch outs. And, if you want punch outs, you might as well just leave Zane Morehouse in. So, I mean, that always, in hindsight, that always seems like something that could have happened. But usually when you've got a closer, you just kind of let him win the game or lose the game.
Yeah, and the defense, they had a couple of, I don't think they were charged as errors, but miscues where they could have turned a double play and they didn't. And so you just can't at the end of the day, you cannot let extra base runners get on base. You can't give them that extra amount of momentum, especially at home. And I think if I remember correctly, the last 4 innings in a row, Texas let the lead on guy get on every single time. That's going to burn you at some point. It just is. But yeah, no, I mean, you got to live and die by the sword. And that's what happens in college baseball. These guys they're not pros. Let's just call it that. So it doesn't matter how experienced you are or what you think they have. At the end of the day, any given pitcher could have a bad evening, and that's the game. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was certainly a gut punch, and it made the trip back to Austin a lot longer for those guys, I'm sure. But if you step back and look at the big picture, we knew coming into Big 12 play, we saw the schedule whenever it got announced. We said, whoa, okay, Texas Tech and at Oklahoma State back-to-back to start conference play. If you would have told us, way back, whenever the schedule came out, December or January, the Texans would be 4-2 after those two series. We both would have taken it. Most Texas fans would have taken it, should have taken it. So
Yeah.
would have liked, to get that series since it was there for the taking, but overall the Horns are still in a good spot. Let's hit briefly on the Air Force game. We were recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Texas beat Air Force 7-1 on Tuesday night. My overall thought was just, man, this was just finally a relaxing, straightforward win. You go out there, you hit 3 homers. Peyton Powell gives you a lead right off the bat. You throw strikes, Ace Whitehead gives you 4 innings. He's out there doing Ace Whitehead things, just kind of throwing strikes, letting the defense work. Defense is picking up the ball, throwing it to first base, catching fly balls. It was just kind of nice and easy how the game should be played, what a Texas versus Air Force Tuesday night game should look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. Coach Pierce always talks about the importance of Tuesday nights, and he always says, we're going to do as well as our starting pitching. I don't think necessarily Ace Whitehead was confusing anyone. I mean, they got some pretty hard hit balls, but the thing is, he keeps them off balance enough that he lets his defense work. He trusts his defense. And maybe that's from him coming and playing an outfield position as well, right? He knows that he has a good defense behind him. But he gave up 1 run, and then he just continued to grind through it. He got a couple of guys on base, and he was just getting out of trouble. He gave up the 1 run. But otherwise, yeah, nice and easy. Texas scored 3 in the bottom of the first, 3 in the bottom of the fourth. They tacked on 1 in the 5th. And it was just, they never really felt like it was any danger. It was just like, okay, yeah, we have a nice evening just to enjoy the Air Force game. Coach Kaz, his interview is electric as always. That dude, shout out to Coach Kaz in the Air Force program. I love those guys. They are absolute top-notch class. I think if you could say of any team in the nation that Texas fans would want to play, it'd always be Air Force. And a couple of Air Force guys even took to Twitter to say, like, we love playing at Texas. The fans are amazing. They always show us all the utmost respect and everything. So that was cool. But in all, it was a good night. Texas got some guys hitting. DC is almost up to 300 on the season now after last night. He had a couple of hits. He had a no-doubter. Powell had an absolute no-doubter to right field for a nice Oppo Taco. Galvan got his 4th home run of the year. So yeah, it was good to see.
Yeah, I mean, all those homers were all, different in their own right. Powell, he got the 0-2 pitch and just launched it in the first inning. Dylan Campbell, I realized this just when it came off the bat, I was like, every Dylan Campbell homer is just the same. Like they're in the same general spot. It's just, he's got the most consistent swing. Like he likes that kind of low down and in-ish pitch, or just one left over the plate. I mean, it's just funny. Like I've got the home run thread of Dylan Campbell this year. And if I would have gone back to last year, you just look up every Dylan Campbell homer, it's going to feel like you're watching, an instant replay over and over and over. And
yeah,
that's just how he is, man. He's really consistent. I wrote about him a little bit. Just he's just a 5-tool player sometimes when he's got it all clicking. I mean, he's got that average up around 300. He can hit for contact. He's got the power. We know he's got the speed. He's been stealing more bags lately. We've been seeing him run down balls in right field, and then we've been seeing him throw people out. His arm has been really impressive this year. So he's put it all together as we hoped he would. And then, you got Galvan and Oppo Taco. He's got power to all parts of the field. He's really fun to watch. He's just going to be a great part of the lineup going forward when he, takes over as a full-time catcher or DH. So very excited about the future there. And then we got to mention it, man. Cam Constantine, he got that first hit. He had been waiting a while. You talk to anyone around the Texas program, whether it's his teammates, the coaches, the analytics team, people in the press box, everyone loves Cam Constantine, which, is rare for just a guy, you just don't, at a big university like Texas, it's going to be rare that anyone you talk to will kind of go out of their way to bring up this guy that doesn't really play that much and is not a major contributor, but man, he just seems like an awesome guy. Everyone talks about how hard of a worker he is, and finally got that first hit, little base knock up the middle there. So that was good to see.
Yeah, that was really fun to see. And you could tell that the entire dugout was going bananas. They were telling him to retire the ball because they wanted to give it to him. It was, after the inning ended, they, all attacked him and mobbed him in the dugout. It was really cool to see. I mean, by all accounts, he's not only a great guy, but he's also a team guy first. You hear David Pierce talk about him all the time because people have asked him, like, why are you giving this third-year player at bats? He's never gotten a hit. He's never really been in this. And David Pierce, like, I mean, you can tell they care about the kid and the kids in general, not just him, but he goes out of his way to talk about how hard he works, the amount of work he puts in, the way he always shows up and does things right, and how he's tried to adjust his swing, how he's tried to adjust at the plate so he can get that first hit. So that was really, really cool to see. So yeah, super exciting for him. And who knows? Maybe he goes on a tear and powers Texas to the season they want to have. So
Yeah, man. Sometimes those hits they come in spurts. Sometimes you just need one to drop. And then I mean the bullpen. A lot of guys just put together quality innings. Kobe Minchie, he made his debut. He looked really solid. I'll let you touch on him a little bit. But then we also had DJ Burke out there, Heston Toll doing his thing. So it was a solid performance from guys that hadn't been able to pitch much lately. Which means it's always good to get those guys in there because, man, you never know. You get to Game 5 of the Big 12 tournament. You get to Game 7 of a regional. You just don't know what the pitching is going to look like. You get into extra innings. Might have to throw one of these guys out there. So any confidence that you can get them, any game experience that you can get them on a Tuesday night, that stuff matters sometimes late in the season. So it was good to see all those guys kind of go out there, throw strikes, and get the job done.
Yeah, especially when you pair a guy like Chris Stewart with Ace Whitehead back to back. Luke Harrison is obviously out for the season with his injury. You got a guy like Ace from the left-hand side throwing tops 90, but typically 88 to 90 on his fastball. Doesn't have a ton of movement on his breaking stuff. Then you got a guy like Chris Stewart who can hit 95, and he did the other night, who has a big sweeping breaking ball slider. That throws and keeps people off balance really well. Then you got a guy like Heston Toll who was just dropping some hammers of his breaking balls again, because that's what he's known for. And actually, it was interesting. I thought Heston, as good as his breaking balls were, I thought his his sinkers looked better than I had seen in the past. So, I mean, he's continuing to put in that work, continuing to tinker. But yeah, a guy like Kobe Minchie, he's a true freshman. He doesn't have a ton of experience at the high level. Coming in, he wasn't playing for like Round Rock or one of the big high schools. But he was hitting 93 to 94, and kind of the concern was always strikes for him. That he has the arm. He's got a live arm and has a good action. It's can he hit the strike zone? And he looked really well. And the cool thing about it is Air Force has some dudes on their roster that can hit the ball. I mean, Thomason has 10 home runs. Closing game, everyone knows that guy's a 400 batter year in, year out. They didn't give up a hit over the last 5 innings. So that's awesome to see. Texas can come in and just have some zeros thrown on the board because, as you said, they're going to get deep into conference play. They're going to get to regionals play, and they're going to need some of these guys to step up and pitch when you have back-to-back days. So,
yeah, I mean, Texas 18-2 at home. What can you say? I mean, they look comfy out there, man. The defense is better at home. The at-bats are definitely better at home. The bullpen is coming in throwing strikes. They've been doing good at the dish. And speaking of winning games at the dish, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about the Big 12 here and the overall standings. You got Texas and Oklahoma State virtually tied at the top. You got Oklahoma State 6-3, Texas 4-2. And then you just have a big bundle of teams. I mean, like you would expect kind of this early in the year, but West Virginia, TCU, Kansas State, Kansas, Texas Tech, all there, between 2 and 2.5 games of one another before you kind of drop down to Oklahoma and then Baylor in a tier by themselves, unfortunately for them. But it's going to be a dogfight here from here on out. Texas is past 2 of the tougher games on paper, two of the tougher series on paper, at least. So what are some of the keys you see here as you're looking at the standings and the upcoming schedules for each of these teams, and more specifically, what Texas has left and what they might need to do to be in contention for, a top finish in the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, if you take a look at the schedule, you touched on it already. If you're 4-2 after a series against Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, you got to be pretty happy with where you're at right now. I mean, they're not jumping for joy because they could very easily be 5-1.
Yep.
Within a heartbeat. I mean, right? Like they were right there. But if you look at it this way, they're tied for at the top essentially. They have a series at home against Kansas State, which I feel is very winnable. And then you have a road series at Baylor, which is even more winnable based on what we've seen from the Bears. Assuming that they were to get a series win, so go 2-1 against K-State at home, And even if they went 2-1 against Baylor on the road, you're sitting at 8-4 halfway through the conference season. So you got 12 games left against TCU, Kansas, West Virginia, and Oklahoma. That TCU series is obviously always going to be tough. They got a really good ball squad or ball team. I don't care what the record says. They've got talent. Oklahoma's always going to play them tough. I don't know what kind of talent level Oklahoma really has this year. They've been really up and down. But you have to admit that against Texas, Oklahoma, they're always going to play tough, especially with Skip at the helm. And then you have a Kansas team, which, yeah, they're 3-3 in conference, but realistically, they'll probably end up closer to the bottom. And then you have a West Virginia team, which is really sneakily very, very good this year. But they went 1-3 against K-State. Or they went 2-3 against K-State. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Texas ends up with 15 to 17 wins. And if you look at the historicals since 2013, 17 wins is the average number of wins you need to win the Big 12. So Texas just has to focus on winning series. Win every series and you're in contention. If you're able to sweep a Kansas or a Baylor, you're really doing well for yourself.
Yeah, that's the part that I like about when I look at the rest of the Big 12 schedule is the fact that Texas has Kansas State, West Virginia, and Oklahoma all at home at the Dish. And then when you're looking at road trips, you've got Baylor and Kansas on the road. You would like to think that since Baylor and Kansas are probably the two worst teams in the conference, it is still a possibility to go on the road and pick up a sweep in one, if not both of those series. So if you can throw in 5, maybe 6 road wins and combine that with, series victories at home against the teams that are a little more evenly matched against Texas, that puts you in a really good spot. And then you've also got the road series at TCU, which will be tough. You mentioned it. The record is not there so far, but they're a good team and they will definitely get up for a weekend series to host Texas. So that'll be a tough one, but I like how the schedule sets up overall to potentially get to that 17, 18 number that you've been bringing up here. But enough about the big picture stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the Kansas State Wildcats, who come in at 19-12 on the year, 5-4 in Big 12 play. Zach, I will let you take over from there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've seen from K-State is they've just been really streaky. They at first they won a couple of games, good. Then they hit a rough patch where they lost 5 or 6 in a row. And then they went on a streak again where they won, 10 or so games in a row. Like they had a decent streak going, and then they lost a couple of games in a row. Since they've gotten to Big 12 teams, they just haven't really been very consistent. They swept Oklahoma at home, but then they lose a series to Baylor and they lose a series to West Virginia. And you're thinking, wait, how are you losing to Baylor but sweeping Oklahoma? That doesn't make sense. So it's kind of hard to get a good feeling for where they are. And if you look at their stats hitting wise, it also tells kind of a strange story, right? But if you look at historically between Texas and K-State, since 2013, Texas has a 5-4 series lead, including 3 sweeps. But since 2017, since Pierce has taken over, they're 2-3 in series, which ironically both wins were sweeps. So hey, I don't know, maybe some magic happens, they get 3 sweeps. One of it, last season, the Horns, who had a pretty decent team, I'd say, went 1-2 against K-State. So as you can tell, it's always a tough series with the Wildcats, regardless if they're in Austin or Manhattan. So it'll be a tough series, but what have you seen from the pitching side?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing to hit on with the pitching is we're going Thursday through Saturday this weekend. I know there is some weather potentially on the horizon, but we will deal with that when we come to it. So just keep that in mind. All the pitchers will be on slightly different schedules. You expect those guys to be able to adjust their routines, but that is something to pay just a little bit of attention to. I was able to watch all these Kansas State starters throw a couple innings against West Virginia. So I took some notes here. So Thursday, I'm expecting Owen Barema. Man, this guy, I like this guy. He is a 6'5" lefty, 3.89 ERA, 1.49 whip. None of that matters. Don't care about any of that. This guy is a transfer from a D3 college, D3 Lives Matter. You love to see it. He pitched at a school called Northwestern in Minnesota, D3 All-American. making his way up to the Big 12. As a former D3 pitcher, that is, that's the dream. You love to see it. And not only do I like this guy just because of his D3 roots, man, this guy, he's the D3est pitcher. I mean, he looks like a D3 pitcher on the mound. He's got some serious Fump Minus. I don't know if I've ever talked about Fump Minus on the show. It's just it is a pitching metric that me and my dumb Division III baseball friends came up with in the bullpen. It is fudged up mechanics plus minus. Doesn't make any sense. We just made it up. Basically, it quantifies if pitchers throw really weird and how that helps them on the mound. So you've got D3 guys, you've got them, they've got holes in their socks, they're missing a belt, they're wearing goggles out there on the mound, they've got one pant leg up, one pant leg down. All of that, factors into Fump Minus. They might be doing some Johnny Cueto stuff in the windup, they might be throwing submarine. You go see a D3 pitcher, it's not going to look like Roy Halladay on the mound, just grooving up there with perfect mechanics. And this guy, he's a big lefty, and he drops his arm as far down and as far back as you can. And then he just brings it all forward and slings it all at once. And it comes out about 80, 89, 90 on the it comes out, 90, 91 on the fastball. He's got a little bit of a slider. It's a low arm slide. He's just a goofy D3 lefty with like a 95 Fump Minus. I'm excited to watch him pitch on Thursday. My comp for him was Alex Wood, and any other comp is just incorrect because the comp is definitely Alex Wood. So be on the lookout for him on Thursday. Friday, I will say he got lit up by West Virginia in by far his worst start of the year. He got rocked for 10 hits and 7 runs against West Virginia, and he had been really good before them. But on the flip side, the guy that they're going to throw on Friday, Herman Fajardo, he had been struggling all year with like a 5.24 ERA, the transfer from Arizona, not as cool as a D3 school, but he had his best outing of the year against the Mountaineers. He went 7 innings, 1 earned run. He's the complete opposite of his buddy Owen Boarama. He is not a goofy lefty with a big long delivery. He is a kind of a shorter righty with a short arm delivery, low 90s fastball with a decent slider. His fastball will run in, slider away. I comped him to Brady Singer. No, I mean, obviously not as, none of these guys are as good as the comps I'm throwing out, but just stylistically, he reminded me a little bit of Brady Singer, who you can see pitch for the Royals. You probably remember him pitching at Florida. And then Saturday, they threw a guy named Colin Rothermel. He's a 6'1" righty. It was his first appearance of the year. Sounded like he was dealing with some injury stuff. He only went 2 1/3. He allowed 2 earned runs, a couple unearned runs. 48 pitches. He's got a low 90s fastball. His slider is more of a vertical breaker with a curveball that breaks vertically. The way he throws it, he could have a tendency to hang it. So if Texas is able to get some hanging sliders there, they might have some success. Comped him stylistically to kind of a Tim Lincecum. I was having a hard time with the comp for this guy. But I like the Tim Lincecum one a little bit because he does like kind of lean back a little bit and then come over the top, especially with that curveball and that slider. But yeah, that's what I saw from those 3 guys. I'll let you talk about the hitters a little bit and anything else you want to hit on regarding the Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I would throw out there about Owen, the left-hander on Thursday, as you mentioned, he got rocked for 10 hits and 7 runs, but if you look at his strikeout numbers across the board, they've been really good. I mean, he's averaging 6.5, 7 strikeouts per game. People just don't see his pitches well. And the thing that kind of stands out is back on February 24th, he was the starting pitcher, or at least he threw 4.1 innings, so 4 1/3 innings against LSU, and he gave up 4 hits and only a run with 7 strikeouts. So that's not half bad against a team that like LSU. Now, granted, Dylan Cruz wasn't quite up and running yet. Neither was Tommy Tanks, but yeah, I mean, this is a guy that I always say the guys that give Texas the most trouble are the guys that have Fump plus 1.
Fump minus.
All right.
Fudged up mechanics plus minus.
Plus minus, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the guys that are throwing like low 70s. Like Texas cannot figure them out. Like their timing's off. Their hands are like, what do I do with my hands? It's so bad. So yeah, this is definitely a guy that could come in and just absolutely rock Texas for 12 strikeouts. I don't know. Or Texas could absolutely hammer him. I'm excited to see what this guy does because as you said, his mechanics are all kinds of wonky.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see a D3 guy pitch at the dish against Lucas Gordon. It is one of those pitching matchups that I am looking forward to.
It was funny to listen to Zeke and Zonk try to explain how Lucas Gordon and Owen are similar, and I was like, no, not in any way, shape, or form, other than they both happen to be left-handed.
Yeah, no, that's about it.
But no, some of the hitters to watch, something I noticed throughout the Kansas State lineup is they've got power, right? They all have a home run or two. But the goal for them is absolutely you get on base no matter what it takes, and then you run. But the guys to look out for are senior Cash Rugley. I mean, he's the Round Rock kid.
Texas. Yeah, I actually I pitched against him. He's one of the last remaining guys that I've actually faced. I'm sure he hit multiple doubles off of me. He actually went to Cedar Ridge, which is kind of a Round Rock feeder school. But yeah, one of the last guys out there that I can claim to have pitched against. Didn't take me yard, which is good, but definitely probably hit a double or two.
Yeah. And like I said, he's seen Texas a lot, but he's hitting 355 with a 1.1 OPS. He's got 5 home runs. Again, 10 for 12 on the bases. So we'll talk about it in a minute, but something to watch for this weekend is going to be K-State is going to run. They don't care who's behind the plate. Redshirt sophomore Brady Day, he's hitting 302. He only has a couple of home runs, but again, he's really good at stealing, 7 for 9. Junior Nick Goodwin, he's been around for a while. Texas has seen him. He's had a lot of success. His average is not quite where it's been in the past. He's only hitting 283, but he's got 7 home runs. So he's hitting a little more power. He's a little OPS, a little more slugging percentage. He's 9 for 11 on the bases. And then you have, out of the blue, senior Roberto Pena, who comes in. He's only hitting 250 on the season, but he was the Big 12 player of the week. So last weekend, he went, 671 with a 1.2 OPS. So he's got 8 home runs. He leads the team. So they have power throughout, and they've got guys that can consistently get on base throughout. And you think about stealing, Brendan Jones is the name to watch for, 19 of 23. Don't let him on base. He's going to run. He's going to steal. Which takes me to my odds and ends. Like I said, this is a weird, streaky team. And I found something interesting. So they have the most stolen base attempts in the Big 12, which could be a potential issue, on I guess Friday when Staley's throwing, he's not the fastest to the plate already. And you've got Galvan, who's again still learning what it means to be a college catcher day in and day out. But like a guy like LBJ, he doesn't have the fastest motion to the plate either. So there's going to be movement on the base pass. But what's interesting is they're 8th in batting average in the Big 12, but they're 2nd in home runs, 2nd in RBIs, and 2nd in runs scored. If I'm David Pierce, I don't care what you have to do. Do not let them get on base. No walks this weekend.
That means they're drawing walks. Yeah.
Which means they're drawing walk. Yeah. And so very much so they're first in the Big 12 in bases on balls by a wide margin. I mean, it's not even close to Texas Tech, who comes in 2nd. And so that walk and stolen base combo is going to be really, really dangerous. The other thing that was interesting, they're 5th in ERA, so middle of the pack. But if it's a 1-run or close game, they're 1st in saves. So Texas should not expect to necessarily have some great late magic against the Wildcat bullpen. So just something to look out for.
I mean, that is quite the dangerous combination you just listed there. When you get a team that draws a lot of walks, is good on the bases, and then is good late in the close games. Yeah. That does not sound like a fun team to play against by any stretch, which I don't think Kansas State will be a fun team for Texas to play against. Man, you hit the nail on the head. You got to make them earn it. If they want to draw walks and they want to steal bases, you got to put it over the plate, and you got to make them earn their base runners. You got to make them hit a single, make them hit a double if they want to get guys on base. Because if you give them a free pass, they've got a high RBI rate. They'll move the guys over somehow. So throwing strikes, always a key, will be especially a key against the type of offense that they like to play. Any other stats you want to throw out there before we make some picks on this series?
No, I mean, they're a solid defensive team, fielding 972, 4 45 home runs. Their OB is 405. So they get, like you said, get on base and they move them over. So get ready, Gumet, ice up that arm, get ready to throw a lot, and talk to your pitchers about their pickoff moves this week, Woody.
Yeah, no, I mean, controlling the run game definitely will be high on the list of priorities this weekend. All right, let's get to some picks. Last weekend, Zach went with 1 and 2. He ended up being correct. I went with 2 and 1 because I was just riding the heater. They had one out, nobody on in the 9th inning, up by a run. Thought I had a chance, and then it just all came crashing down. But all right, back at it this weekend, Zach. Texas at home for 3 against Kansas State. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm going with 2 and 1. I think Texas, having played K-State so close in the years past, the running ability really scares me. I think that Texas pitching is going to really have to focus on controlling that run game. So I think they do drop one, but I like the combination of what I've seen from Staley. I liked what I've seen from Gordon. So I think Texas can take the series.
Yeah, I'm in agree with you. I'm going Texas wins 2 out of 3 this weekend. Man, this Texas team has just been an absolute wagon at home. They're 18 and 2 at home. They've looked good. Everything looks good when they're at home. They're still playing pretty quality baseball all around. You got guys like Dylan Campbell hitting the ball really hard. Got to feel good about Lucas Gordon throwing on Friday night. The bullpen's still been solid. So I'm going to go 2 and 1. K-State, they're good enough to grab one, I think. They're good enough to win the series, but they're good enough to where I'm not just going to outright pick a sweep. I think a sweep's definitely in play. I'm not taking it off the table, but if I have to make a pick, I'm going to go 2 and 1. What else stands out to you around the Big 12 this week, and what other matchups do we have? And where might we be leaning if we had to be rooting for someone?
Yeah, I think all eyes should be on the Oklahoma State at TCU series. You talk about Texas having to start off with Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State will have played Texas Tech, Texas, and TCU all at the beginning of the year. That's rough. That's real rough. But the reason that's so important is because OSU is 6 and 3 on the season, so they're already pretty much halfway through or about to be it. Whereas Texas Christian, TCU, is 5 and 4. If TCU were to be able to win this series, that really propels them back into contention of the Big 12 championship. And it also really kind of hurts OSU's chances, having lost that series to Texas Tech already. That's going to put some pressure on them to get a sweep maybe, or outright win the rest of their series. So I think that's a really big series for the Big 12. Obviously, Texas and Kansas State. Texas has to win the series to stay up at the top. The other one is interesting is West Virginia versus Kansas. West Virginia is a late bloomer in terms of they've only played one Big 12 series because they had 2 bye weeks back to back to start. But they won that first series, and if they're able to get a sweep against Kansas or even a series win, they're technically right there at the top. They could be in contention in the Big 12 for a while. And then Oklahoma and Baylor, the 2 bottom feeders, who comes out on top? I think it's Oklahoma, but man, both those teams have played really poorly at times, and not really shown a massive amount of upside at others. So and then poor North Dakota State, who we saw come to Austin not terribly long ago, is traveling to Lubbock of all places, where they are going to have to play Texas Tech in a 3-game series. I'm not saying take the over, but Texas Tech might score 60 this weekend. It's not going to be pretty. So go Bison, but I don't know what else to say about those guys.
You're telling me Texas Tech is not willing to make the trip up to South Dakota, in the beginning of April? I'm shocked that series is taking place in Lubbock, where Texas Tech manages to play 62 home games every single season. Just incredible stuff. Very on brand there from Texas Tech. I think that is correct. Not financial advice on the overs, but do not take the unders. We will say.
Not in Lubbock, where this past weekend against TCU they combined for about $1.5 million points. So, and then not around the Big 12, but outside of the Big 12, just looking at series to watch. Again, the Oklahoma State versus TCU is a really big series just for college baseball in general. Number 1 LSU travels to South Carolina, who is all the way up to number 6 on the season. You talk about 2 teams that can hit a home run. If I'm a fan, I'm standing in left field, probably left center, because that's where Tommy Tanks usually hits it. But Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some balls flying. I want to see what Paul Skeens does against a team like South Carolina that can hit it. And then staying in the SEC, you got number 3 Florida versus number 11 Tennessee, who just lost the series to LSU 2-1. So can they bounce back? Jack Caglione, he's got, I don't know, 30,000 home runs already this season. He's the greatest hitter ever, apparently. Florida looks like the real deal. They just continue to steamroll. So that'll be a fun series. And then the ACC's come in through strong this week, and you got number 9 Boston College, who's come out of absolutely nowhere, is playing number 18 Louisville. Louisville struggled as of late a little bit. And then you got Virginia, who just lost their series to Virginia Tech, playing against Miami, who just swept Florida State for the first time in, it was like 20 years or something crazy like that. So yeah, ACC's got some, battle royale at the top there.
Yeah, I mean, number 9 Boston College. I mean, how about that? Who would have saw that coming? That's pretty fun there. South Carolina, they've got a freshman, I believe. I forget his name. You can throw his name in there if you know it, but they've got a freshman just mashing homers left and right.
Yeah, that South Carolina team. Everyone saw that they had the pieces in place last year. They just couldn't put the puzzle together. I mean, Texas ran into a buzzsaw. They won the game 1 and then just got beat around on game 2 and 3. But yeah, that team's really come a long way, and they've got some young pieces that have really contributed and made them look really good this season. So they've been
fun. And then just going back to last week, I mean, that LSU Tennessee series, we talked about it. We were excited about it. That Dollander Skeens matchup lived up to the hype. It was a lot of fun. That was on Thursday. That was on opening day. So yeah. I'm going through, I'm watching MLB baseball all day. And then there's a nice little gap between the day games and the late night games. And I'm like, I think I might just throw on Paul Skeens and Chase Dollander. And I mean, you've got these awesome opening day matchups between all these big league pitchers. And it's like, you throw on Skeens and Dollander and they just look exactly like the MLB aces. I mean, those guys they might be matching up against each other on opening day here in 4 or 5 years, which would be really cool to see. But yeah, man, college baseball, always fun as usual. Big weekend for Texas. Little different with the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, a little bit of weather. You've got the Masters, always a fun weekend. There's just a lot going on early April. If you're able to make it out to the Dish, I recommend you do it because that helps this Texas team. They're very good at home. They're very fun to watch. This is a big series. We'll see what happens. I mean, we will be there. We will be locked in. Zach, anything else you want to mention before I run through all the usual closing stuff and get us out of here?
No, excited to be back at the Dish this weekend after a weekend away of fishing, and looking forward to just having my eyes glued to the baseball while trying to sneak peeks at the Masters while it's going on.
Any big catches out there on the water?
Yeah, it was really windy as I predicted. But we caught some nice trout, some 4.5 pounders, some 3 pounders. So I'll probably send some pictures over to Austin Todd and make him jealous.
There you go. Yeah, we ran into Austin Todd. He definitely tried to invite himself on your fishing trip, but you did not take the bait. No pun intended. But so with that, go ahead and please like the video, give us a like, subscribe if you are not subscribed to the Orange Bloods YouTube channel. You can give us a follow on Twitter. I'm at Aaron Little OB. Zach is at Zach at the Dish. Check out all of our written stuff on orangebloods.com. We got our great sponsorship now, Pint House Brewing. Check them out. Want to get some good food, some good drinks. They've got awesome stuff. They're sponsoring all of our baseball stuff on Orange Bloods. Shout out to them. And with that, we will get out of here. We will watch a lot of good baseball over the weekend, a little bit of golf, and then we will be back to talk about it all on, we'll be back next week.
Yeah. Welcome.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Subscribe to the channel. Do it now.